Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Celtic Down Under Weekend Review. My name is Anthony Maguire. I'm joined by Richard Tobin and Paul Massey as we assess Celtic 2, Rangers 1, 1 foot closer, step closer to clinching another league title. Not there yet, 2 games left to play, 6 points ahead. 7 goals better in the goal difference, I believe. I didn't check that before I came online, but we're in a very strong position, and a result either against Kilmarnock or St Mirren at the weekend will get us there. That's provided that Rangers win their last 2 games, and I wouldn't say that that's a certainty either. Richard, how was your weekend?
Good, thanks. Yeah, it was massively improved after the last 7 minutes of added time, which I was actually sober enough to feel every moment of anxiety as every blue ball get punted in. We should have scored in the 7 minutes as well. But aye, great. I went to see Reece Nicholson on Friday night. That was good fun. Good start to the weekend, Perth Comedy Festival, and then rather more prosaically cleaned out my garage before I watched the Glasgow Derby. So aye, very productive.
Oh, I did my tax return on Sunday. Anything to pass the time. And I think I'd had that many pints and vodkas by the time the last 7 minutes of extra time, injury time, whatever you want to call it, was played, that I didn't really care by that point. So that's one way definitely to get through it. Paul, I was obviously with you at the Celtic Club, so I know how your night transpired. But leading up to that, how was your weekend?
Yeah, weekend was pretty tame. It all pretty much revolved. I had a nice lunch with my wife and a couple of friends on Saturday daytime. Just wheedled away a few hours there. Kept me out of the pub, I suppose. But yeah, that can only be held away for so long. And yeah, met our other friend Dave at 4ish, and then you joined us by about 4:30, and that was us for 3 hours prior to kick off. We started tipping them down. So yeah, I watched the whole game again yesterday, because my memory of the last 30 to 40 minutes, basically post the penalty miss, it was a little bit sketchy. Partly because of the alcohol, but in fair part probably just the general mayhem that was going on in the Celtic Supporters Club and Johnny Fox's in Perth. So yeah, it was another brilliant night in there, as it always is, particularly when you get a result. But yeah, another huge crowd, few hundred people in there. Great atmosphere beforehand, fantastic atmosphere through the game, and obviously even better at the end when we all got the result we wanted. So yeah, cracking night. Sunday, unsurprisingly, was relatively tame. I don't think we needed those margaritas post game, but turns out that's become a bit of a tradition. So yeah, post match,
our Mexican debrief after the match. But I must say, I did see my fish tacos again on Sunday morning.
Oh no!
I had a PT session. I had a PT session at 7:15, which, as you imagine, didn't go very well. And thankfully, my trainer took pity on me. And then I had to do my Daniel Stern impersonation and do a City Slickers out at my father-in-law's hobby farm. So I stood in the sun for 3 hours nailing star pickets into the ground with a mallet. So thankfully, all my thumbs and fingers are still intact. So not something you recommend with a hangover. And if you think the hour before a Glasgow derby goes slowly, you should try doing some farming when you've got a hangover, because trust me, it goes even slower. Anyway, I've got some comments.
Utter madness. I did the dog walk. I did a couple of dog walks. That's about as much energy as I mustered on Sunday.
Sunday afternoon was very, very sedate. It was just on the couch, and there was not much movement. And rest assure you, I had to recuperate. But anyway, I digress. And we are the views are racking up. So get some of the comments up, and then we'll get into it. Boris Jackson saying, "Hail, hail to the Kings, baby." The King of Kings was in attendance, both at the match and then also at the players' dinner on Sunday night. He received a Lifetime Achievement Award of some description. So congratulations to Henrik, looking rather resplendent in his grey locks. We've got Pete McGee saying, "Did Celtic win on Saturday?" Asking for a friend from Govan. I think Hun Twitter has... when you think you've seen it all implode, they find new levels. It's just, it's amazing. And any thought of a hangover, like, you just read a bit of that and just think how much they're suffering. Because yeah, anyway, we're not worry waste too much time on them. Hi, hail, guys. Big Rab B Nez. How you doing, buddy? I haven't seen you in the comments before, so thanks for joining us. What else we got? Patrick McLaughlin, don't know Pete. Idol, Social TV and TV's on Dawson's Friday. Yeah, we'll turn them back on, have a laugh. Jerry Burns, hail, everybody. Alrighty, let's get into it. So the one change, which I think we spoke about last week, Paul, was James Forrest retaining his starting position. We all thought that Maeda, given his 20-minute cameo against Hearts, looked an absolute stick-on to start on the left wing. And sure enough, he was fit enough. And Maeda was doing Maeda things, which we'll get to. So he makes the start at the expense of Kuhn, who drops to the bench. The rest of the team unchanged. Richards, I will be honest, I was feeling pretty confident going into this. I felt there was no way we could lose the match. Worst case scenario, would walk out with a draw. I changed my shirt to go at the Celtic club because the last time I wore my centenary shirt, we drew. And I went, no, we're going to go for the win today. So I changed it up and paid dividends if you're superstitious. But I honestly thought there was no way we're losing this. Like, worst case scenario, we walk away with a draw, status quo, 3 points ahead, 2 games to play with a better goal difference. But I just couldn't see it. I just thought we're going to do this. And partly because the performance last week against Hearts, and then partly just feeling that we got our players back at the right time. Everyone's starting to click. And obviously the biggest concern that we had in the last couple of weeks was Callum McGregor, but we kind of felt that he turned the corner last week against Hearts as well. So we felt that I felt all the pieces of the jigsaw puzzle were there. Barring a VAR or a Willie Collum howler, I kind of felt we were going to get over the line and do the business. But that was me. Richard, how were you feeling?
I always have trepidation, especially after the recent 3-3 draw, where we played so well in those first sort of half hour, 40 minutes, and then kind of really let Rangers back into the game. So, it's the story of Celtic season, the kind of 50-50, which one are we going to get? I was really relieved when the first sort of 5 minutes or so, James Forrest had already been in the box, and I think it was Suter that almost turned the ball into his own net. So, pleased to see James Forrest. I'm a big James Forrest fan, have been for many, many years. Great to see him in the starting lineup, and brilliant to see Dyson Maeda looking absolutely sparkling, and Cal Mack looking absolutely sparkling as well. So the first 5-10 minutes, I definitely felt a lot more comfortable. Before that, not so much.
Paul, you're naturally optimistic. We bumped into our old podcasting pal Tommy, who was like, your yin to his yang, or however you want to say it, but like he's usually Mr. Pessimism and you're like Mr. Optimism. So I had one of you either side of me. So it was kind of like I was like the channeling force of positivity, negativity, not negativity, but like, just being, a bit more rational and obviously just he's
bringing
too much
balance to the force.
Balance to the force. That's right. There you go. There's a Star Wars reference. All right, Paul, take it away.
Yeah, well, as anyone who's watched this, in any time in the past will know, glass half full kind of guy and pretty bullish when things are going our way, and they have been for the last few weeks. It's not been a vintage season, we all know that, but we've certainly come on to a bit of form, just as sort of they've taken their eye off the ball as well. So I agree with you, Anthony. I was pretty confident, very confident as well. I expected us to win comfortably, and we should have. And actually, games played on the grass, not just on the stats, but you look at any number of stats that are there, tons more possession. Obviously, you'd expect that, with 10 men on the opposition for half the game, twice as many shots, much more on target. We miss a penalty. We should have been. We should have won by 3, 4, 5 goals, and it wouldn't have flattered us.
Yeah.
And we'll get into the detail, but we were, apart from a few spots in the very early in the game, actually, we did come out at pace. Richard's right. We came out at pace. We put, there was an intensity there, but some of our old feelings were visible, and we did cough up a few chances early. Thankfully, they weren't able to take theirs, probably Fabio Silva being the main culprit for them. But generally, we started to we created chances from very early on, and we were the better side, albeit that they, like I say, had a couple of chances on the break, but we grew into the game, and really anything that they sort of got out of it was really from our own slackness and our own lack of focus. So yeah, ultimately all we needed was the result. We had a bit of a performance, but really we should have been more clinical and we should have put them away. All that said, I'm obviously very confident that I actually think they might choke on Tuesday and we might win the title sitting on our backsides. But I certainly think we'll get the job done at Kilmarnock if that's necessary. And yeah, feeling pretty bullish and confident about the cup final and hoping that will be the game where we finally properly put them to the sword and rack up a scoreline, because we should have gobbed them at Ibrox and we let them back in, and we certainly should have taken a few more off them on Saturday. So yeah, got there in the end.
It is interesting because that is like one of Brendan Rodgers' criticisms in his post-match. He says, obviously these games you've got to win them. There's fans all around the world celebrating the win, which we were. We were singing our hearts out. So, fair play. It is about the result in these sorts of matches. But he did sort of point out that we should be seeing these games out far more comfortably than we are. So, I mean, had we seen it out at Ibrox, then that would be 4 wins out of 4 in the Glasgow derbies in the league. We couldn't quite do it. Obviously, we managed it on the weekend. But, we tend to try and make it a wee bit hard for ourselves when, the penalty miss, and he's kind of felt that was the changing point in our fortunes in terms of our chance creation, and we kind of sort of it became a little bit ropier maybe slightly after that. But in saying that, in my hazy mind, I don't remember Joe Hart having much to do in that second half anyway. So the fear comes from just the fact that it's 2-1 and all it takes is a handball or a cross to just land in the wrong spot or something like that. But realistically, those chances just never really fell to them. Like they had their best chances in the first half, and I think it was Ray Bradshaw said on Twitter, he says at some point there'll be a government inquiry into how someone paid 35 million quid for Fabio Silva, and he's tricky and he can be annoying, but yeah, anyway, enough to say about that. Loser the better. Whatever, I'm just going to pull out a couple of quick quotes. Just got Martin saying missed. Oh no, that wasn't the one I was trying to pick up. Sorry. The comments have moved along a little bit since I had that on my mouse cursor. Forest best game versus Rangers. I think it's definitely up there. Smell the glove just saying here that hell, any win over any version of Rangers is great. I think we agree on that. And then what's Mahesh saying? Took 20 minutes to get the game under control, and after the red, Celtic were never going to lose. Well, I have to say, even 11 minutes, I didn't feel we were going to lose, but thankfully that was what came to pass. As you said, Richard, there was a very early chance from Forest, got in nice and early, and I went, oh, this bodes well. This is the sort of start that you want. You want the their centre halves having to run back towards goals, because that then puts doubt in their mind. They know Kyogo's breathing down their neck. Suter, like you say, nearly made an absolute hash of it, but between him and Butland, they managed to bundle it away and it got cleared off the line, sort of thing. So that was one point that I noticed early. Matt O'Reilly finding his range. So he had the one chance, very similar shot chance to the one where he actually does score in the 38th minute.
Yeah, he was out by 5. He was out by 5 degrees for the first 35 minutes.
Yeah, he's just finding his radar. And then the other thing I noted early was a few hefty challenges by some Rangers players that didn't end up in the book. Diamonde definitely had one. I thought that was a yellow card all day long. You got a talking to. Two. And then there was 2 other players for Rangers where I thought easily any of them could end up in the book. And who ends up getting booked first? A Celtic player, of course. But we'll come back to Willie Collum, because Willie has his moments and he had his moments, and we'll get to those. But I guess, Richard, up until the goal, was there anything that sort of springs to mind, since your mind was a bit fresher than mine, or are you?
Well, it's just the stuff you picked up on. Matt O'Reilly was having a good game. There was lots of people having a good game early on, and the energy. I really watching James Forrest turning back the years, looking really fresh, giving lots of sort of interesting angles and approaches on the right side. Matt O'Reilly was unlucky with his first strike, and similarly unlucky at the free kick. Struck it well. Yeah. So there was lots to be really comfortable about in the early stages of the game. I thought Cal Mack drove brilliantly early on, and they coughed a couple of chances up, but Liam Scales, I think, was the man appearing on the line to save one of Fabio Silva's more speculative efforts. I think he was looking for the back post, but actually ended up being cleared off the line. So that's a good enough start, pretty solid. I was quite enjoying it, and I think that when the goal came, it had been coming.
Yeah, no, I must admit, I thought it was only a matter of time. I thought the pressure was building. Like, it only appeared like the goal was going to come from one end. Like, we had sort of shut up shop, and it was just us recycling possession. And I pointed this out last week. We were talking to Paul about this. I watched some of the Rangers Kilmarnock game, and Rangers' game plan is just to feed the ball long to Dessers in hopes that he can get on the end of it and in effect some sort of attack and getting the ball in the box. But they're very one-dimensional, and their midfield just couldn't cope with Cal Mack, McGregor, and Atati. And to be honest, I don't think Atati had that great a first half.
Yeah,
he came into a game a bit, but he was quite quiet in retrospect. But even with him being quiet, between McGregor, O'Reilly, James Forrest, and Maeda applying a lot of pressure on the left-hand side, you just kind of felt that we had the running of them. And, you saw the Rangers fans, post-match saying, Lundstrom and Sterling should have been in there and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, that's all they've got. But, you definitely feel that we won that midfield battle early doors. And if we were to get turned over, as it were, they'd have to have won the midfield. And, I felt that we really sort of got that dominance early doors. Paul, and you want to add before you may as well take us into the goal if you like.
Yeah, look, touching on a few things. One of the Forrest came out of traps like a steam train. Made on the other side set the tone really early. He was tracking back on Tavernier inside 2 or 3 minutes, like racing back deep into our territory and winning the ball back. You're right to pick up the fouls. Diamandi had basically a forearm to the back of the head on Rio Hatate, which led to the free kick. Now, I've seen elsewhere some people saying that it's an elbow to the head. It should be a red. I disagree to that degree. I think the referee should deal with it on the pitch. I think it's an absolute definite yellow card. And Diamandi is actually lucky to be on the pitch, because inside the first 2 minutes, he clatters through Callum McGregor. Suter went right through the back of Kyogo. Both of those could have been bookings. Probably should have been. They're like the old fashioned, or you get a free one early on. Shouldn't be the case. So there was a fair bit of that. Lundstrom, after about 18 minutes, had a scissors tackle, just a free kick. Hatate on the cusp of half time does exactly the same, gets a yellow. So classic sort of uneven-handed refereeing and stuff that you think, you could argue that these are small things, but we've talked about this a lot. If teams don't get punished early, then they're just allowed to continue to do that. And if the first yellow card doesn't come to the 60th or 70th minute, then they've had that time to sort of kick players around the park. And really, you expect referees to clamp down on it, or you hope referees will clamp down on it. You probably don't expect it. And it's the old-fashioned thing in this fixture is they don't want to pull out the yellows too early, because then they're almost certainly going to have to send someone off, if there's a better chance of that happening. In the end, that was done, dealt from then. And even at that point, he only produced a yellow. If we look at ourselves in the defensive area, we weren't great. And all they've really got is long balls, diagonals. And they targeted that again. Concerningly, Silva had the beating of Alistair Johnston regularly, and not just with pace. He did do him for pace, but he also sort of outmuscled him on occasion. And if he could finish, he should have probably helped himself to a couple. There was the one where he got inside him and slid the shot past the post, and then there was the other one where like Johnston gets caught on the wrong side again, and he sort of tries to get ahead on it. And I think that Silva's more, in classic style of his, he's looking more to win a penalty than he is to actually try and convert it. So yeah, we made problems for ourselves, as we have done defensively for a lot of the season. That's been a bit of a recurring theme. But generally, we were, we came out of the traps fast. We created a few half chances. And then, we score, I think, what is probably the best team goal we've produced all season. 14 passes, 8 players involved. Lovely link play, patience, little quick 1 and 2 touch stuff, knocking it off. Matt O'Reilly at the heart of it. We should probably mention James Tavernier, whose early misplaced pass. Just under no pressure, just passes it straight to O'Reilly, and that starts us off. And he recycles play through Cameron Carter-Vickers, and then there's some interplay with McGregor, and lovely little interchange with Kyogo just across the halfway line, and then it starts moving. It's flicked out to the left. We work it back through to the right hand side of the pitch, and then it's kind of the Callum McGregor and O'Reilly show from there, and they just show a really good movement, pull players out of position, create space for each other. McGregor drags everyone into the corner. AJ and Forrest are wise enough to keep out of that position and allow him to take players in there. And O'Reilly's on the move and on the loop, and he's got acres of space as well. Again, because of McGregor's movement and Forrest and AJ pulling as well. And he's had a couple of sighters before that, and he gets this one perfect, and it's a cracking finish. And 40 odd seconds, I think, from the possession getting coughed up to being in the back of the net, and we've retained the ball and moved it nicely. And they didn't even lay a glove on us during that for those 14 passes. There's no intensity, there's not enough pressure, and we just work it around the pitch and stroke it home. It's a really, really good goal. Like I say, probably the best team goal we've scored all season.
Richard, you want to add?
No, I can't add. That's comprehensive. That it's poetic. It was a joy. It's a lovely moment. It's a lovely moment. You score the first goal in a Glasgow derby as well, But
Matt O'Reilly did clean up at the player awards last night. So Young Player of the Year, Players Player of the Year, Player of the Year. So all 3 major awards all going to him, and I think we've seen in the last couple of weeks just that reminder of the quality that he does possess. And, obviously there's, we've touched on it before, but, the drop off from Christmas and stuff like that. But I think he's definitely back to his best, and he's finishing the season strongly. And you need your players to step up at this time of year to get you over the line and win you titles. And hopefully, as you say, in a couple of weeks' time, win as a Scottish Cup as well. But he's got the quality, and I just felt, I felt like it was coming. And, I'm not surprised it was him that got on the end of it, because his movement was exceptional, and like I said, very well backed up by Callum McGregor, because I thought first half he was exceptional as well, and really set the tone and made sure that we were winning that midfield battle, because ultimately control the ball in the midfield, you're going to have a much easier day of it, and you're going to, like I said, turn the ball back into attack a lot quicker. And that's, what I felt in that first half is basically what happened. And it didn't take long for us to score our second. So like 3 minutes later, according to my notes, Carter-Vickers probably the best defensive pass of the season, from a midfielder. Because obviously Matt O'Reilly's pass last week was exceptional for the one that he found Kyogo for the second goal. So I think as a defender, that crossfield pass is definitely up there. And Maeda, his first touch was absolutely sublime. Like, he could have made an absolute tit of that, but he didn't. His first touch was very, very good. Put himself into the driving seat, and then he's just looking up trying to find the pass, and his pass doesn't quite find anybody, but it does. It finds John Lundstrom, who does his best, does his best to try and clear it, but only does so far as to knock it in the back of his own net. And in fairness, Kyogo was sniffing around, so I think even if he'd have played it a wee bit wider, I kind of feel like Kyogo would have latched onto it and scored anyway. But he did the work for us. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke, Richards. How are you feeling 2-0? What was your thoughts?
You picked up really nicely. I think Daizen Maeda's control of the pass is exceptional. I mean, I would let's be honest. We were only ever console footballers, right? But there'll be professional footballers who looked at that and gone, it was an extremely difficult skill to master, to take it down the way he did, and then to run on at pace and create the opportunity that he did. Defense in disarray, and that's why the OG came, because he created panic in the central defence for Rangers. So lovely strike by Lundstrom, by the way, really nice wee pass finish into the corner. So, you know, credit where credit's due. He had a great game for Celtic in the first half. But no, Daizen Maeda, fabulous. And also his little dance into the crowd, where he said, I think on Twitter later on, that he didn't know that he got booked for going into he didn't know he got booked for going into the crowd after scoring a goal.
He's normally a very stoic individual. Like, he usually just does the stare. He doesn't usually sort of go for that sort of thing, but he launched himself. Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with his hamstring. Like, he was fucking well in there. It's like, a yellow card for crowd surfing? Really? It's like, yeah. Because I always saw the image of him hugging the security guard, and I thought, oh, a yellow card for that? That's a bit rough. And then it wasn't until hours later I realized he was about row F.
Row F, aye.
So it's like,
yeah, he was well in there. He was well in there. But interestingly, like, it's a yellow card. You're not allowed to leave the field of play. But you used to always hear that. I read this somewhere else. You used to always hear that it was like, because it might incite trouble, there's no opposition fans. So who are you inciting? But yeah, you're not allowed to leave the field of play. But probably worth the yellow for that. Yeah, if you've not seen the Celtic TV unique angle of that goal yet, it's well worth a look with the volume up, because it's just crowd noise, and the crowd noise, the absolute roar when he takes that ball out of the sky and then squares up Tavernier is just a joy. And then he's then got him on toast, as he always does. And somebody was sort of saying, you know, what on earth is Lundstrom thinking? But I think he's probably a bit concerned about, I think Hatate is on his shoulder, but then checks his run. And yeah, I think he's probably concerned that if he lets that go, then somebody's coming onto it with a free strike at goal. And he's sort of caught it. To Rich's point, there's utter panic. And when you panic, it's like, I need to do something. And to your point, Anthony, like, getting balls across the box causes, you know, getting defenders turning, facing their own goal always causes, you know, potential problems. And it's that danger of, do you leave it and hope no one's there, or do you try and get something on it and hope you can clear it? And he managed to do neither, except for, as Richard says, tucked it away with a lovely little finish into the bottom corner. And really, we should have been home and hosed at that point. And after that, I noticed this, I was checking this earlier. Although it's 3 minutes after the O'Reilly goal, it was only about 35 seconds the ball was in play for, because there was a bit of obviously celebration. So from the restart, 30 odd seconds later, we're 2-0 up. And again, from the restart, 30 odd seconds, it's then 2-1. And just another example of our poor game management. Like, you know, it's one of the oldest cliches in football is be switched on your weakest right after you've scored. And it's just such a cheap goal to lose, just a terrible goal to lose. And we've lost a lot of goals like that, where multiple people in the defensive unit are guilty, and you can point fingers at more than one of them for just general lax defending, and it's happened again.
Is there any sort of call for a free kick on Sterling for sort of jumping on the shoulders of Greg Taylor? I mean, I haven't really seen a still image of it, but like, he is kind of towering all over him. Admittedly, I would tower over Greg Tayllar because Greg Taylor's a wee short arse, but you know, we know that's a weakness, and it's not his fault. Like, you know, you're only the size that you are. I mean, you know, I think back to the Morelos free kick last season, the way he jumped into AJ. Like, I kind of felt like it was, you know, there's contact, but I mean, is there enough there? It never really got looked at. Like, at no point was there a replay or anything like that. But I'm just curious as to if we sort of feel that there was any.
I think you can make a case for it for sure, and I've seen that case being made today. It wasn't really mentioned in the immediate aftermath, but Sterling's got about a 3 or 4 centimeter or inch. Not sure. I've just read there's 3 or 4. I think it's centimeters, but could be inches. Still a couple inches. Probably more than that, on Taylor. So he's got an advantage anyway. When you're jumping behind somebody, you know, it's easy to get over them. He's definitely got hands on his shoulders, but whether that's as he's coming back down or whether he's actually using that for leverage is hard to tell from a still. You'd have to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
I think he probably just gets the jump on him, and then after that, there's a little bit of contact. You've always got to kind of look at it the other way around. Would you want that given against you if it was in the other end? And
Yeah.
I think we'd be expecting that to be, you know, to be play on. I'm less concerned about whether there's a foul there or not, and more about how badly we defend it.
Yeah.
Age is allowed to be. He's had his problems defending crosses this season, but he's left high and dry. There's two on him on the overlap. Whether it was supposed to be James Forrest that was tracking the fullback, or whether a midfielder should be coming back, either way, he shouldn't be isolated 2-on-1, and he is. Barisic's cross is not even that great. It's in a good area, but it's sort of floated in. There's no real pace on it. Obviously, they target Taylor at the back post. He gets out jumped, and then, but then the bit that really gets my goat is Scales is marking Dessers when the cross first comes in, but gets caught under it and caught ball watching as it gets to the back post. And by the time he's finished ball watching, Dessers has just moved a couple of steps off him and has created a space. And obviously, because CCV wasn't picking him up initially, he's then scrambling to try and get back in. And it's an easy header. The only other person you could potentially have a little go at is Joe Hart. You know, he's a big man and he's allowed to jump and he's allowed to use his hands. And at some point, you would expect that maybe he's coming out and try to get a fist on something there. Maybe not on the first ball, but as it gets headed back across, he should be potentially getting out and trying to get a punch on that and maybe taking the man with him as well. It's just a really poor defensive goal. And as I say, we've lost lots of them this season. I thought Alistair Johnson had a great game last week, as did most of the team, but I thought he was inconsistent, and he's been inconsistent for big chunks of the season. And I thought he was inconsistent again. He was good going forward, but he was very poor defensively. Like I say, Silva had him in all sorts of trouble and caught him on the wrong side more than once. So yeah, we've potentially got, and I actually think we looked better after Ralston came on that side, which says a bit about where Alistair Johnson's form's at, because he was night and day above Ralston when he first came in, and we didn't even miss Juranovic. That's how good he was when he was first in the team. And I feel like there's a bit going on from he's struggling for a bit of form, and probably the break will do him good.
Mesh just agreeing with you there, or he maybe just point a little while ago, but yeah, 2 times in a row, Silva's had the better of AJ. Probably best on ground for XG contribution, but defensively maybe just a little bit wanting. We're halfway mark, guys, and we've got 121 people live, so always helpful when you beat your closest rivals on the weekends. So thank you everyone for joining us live. If you can, please like the video on YouTube when you get the opportunity. It does help other like-minded celts see our work. We'll be here next week, hopefully with the champagne popping as we celebrate a league victory, and then we'll be back the week after that, hopefully celebrating a cup final victory. So 2 more episodes to come to round out the 2023-2024 season. Well, the next major talking point was on the 47th minute, or 45 plus 2 minutes, where Rangers seemingly got their first yellow card with a bit of a rash challenge from John Lundstrom, who was having a bit of a mare by this point, but decided to go the full Monty and decided to try and snap Alistair Johnson's leg. Quite a violent tackle. On first viewing, I went, well, that's definitely a booking. But, it's sort of like I watched it in the pub and the beer kicked in by then. I was sort of going like, that's... And then saw the first replay and I went, oh, I think VAR might have a look at that because that looked pretty nasty. Had another look at it and went, oh, that is a leg breaker. If ever there was one, that is like a red card all day long. And admittedly, it did not take Steve McLean very long to send Willie Collum to the monitor, and it did not take Willie Collum very long to rescind his yellow cards and upgrade Lundstrom to a red card, and his afternoon was complete with an early shower because he was probably Celtic's best player up until that point. Richard, Kenny Miller is still dying on a hill somewhere, saying that that's never a red card. Have you seen a more Stonewall red card in a Celtic Rangers fixture?
So I was sitting quite. My wife doesn't particularly like football, and I was sitting next to her watching this game, which is always a kind of fairly volatile mix for our long-standing relationship, where I kind of lose it every so often and suggest vociferously that certain aspects of the game should be managed in a certain way. And my instinct was, as soon as your man hit, was red card. It's a red card. His foot's up. He's out of control. He's at speed. He's taking his ankle. It's a red card. And then when the yellow came out, you're thinking, and I think I might have texted you actually during the game and said, "Nah, I'm sure that should be a red." While Willie Collin went over to look at his VAR monitor and da 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 da. Anyway. All day long. However, I have the advantage from a unique personal television arrangement. I can watch Sky and I can watch Celtic TV and the other team's TV. That can be good fun as well sometimes, right? But I can manage to watch them all. And Kenny Miller was spouting in his original vent was, if you're a footballer and you're running fast and you can sometimes catch somebody's leg, and if you get the ball, yes, but he didn't get the ball. He got Alistair Johnston's leg. Aye. So anyway, Kenny went on at length during the commentary. Couldn't believe it was going to be turned onto a red card. When did Kenny Miller become such an arch Hun? I mean, he's played for Celtic. I remember him scoring against Benfica, a very good goal at Celtic Park one night, and he's gone over to the dark side. Anyway. Nice to see that he was in later media suggesting that, okay, maybe I have to reconsider this because the weight of everyone else's opinions against you. It was a shocking challenge.
One of my favourites was Chris Sutton saying to Kenny it had been a red card in the 70s. Because he seems to think it's only because of VAR that it was a red card. You slow it down, it looks a lot worse. And it's like, no, VAR helped get the right decision there because that's a leg breaker. Paul, I had to switch off because I actually replayed the 8 minutes of Kenny Miller having a full-on meltdown after the game with Chris Sutton, and I got about 4 minutes and 2 seconds into it and had to turn it off because I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed for him because it's just like Sky are paying this guy money to offer his professional opinion on the game, and that is the best he can come up with. Even Chris Boyd, and it kills me to say this, was like, Kenny, it's a Stonewall red card. I mean, oh my God.
Well,
Paul. Yeah.
When Chris Monster Munch Boyd is the voice of reason, you've wandered quite far off the reservation. Yeah. He's an absolute clown. And he's clearly decided that, he's time to take Boyd's mantle as arch idiot in the Hun media. He's just like, he couldn't be more wrong about VAR if he tried. He said, it's because of VAR, it's because you slowed it down, it's because you've got a still. It's none of those things. What VAR did was actually right or wrong, which is what it's there for. And in Willie Collin's mild defense, at full pace from where he was stood, maybe he thought he got the ball. The ball shot off in the same direction it would have if he'd done that, because obviously it hit the leg and then he hit Johnson's leg and then it knocked the ball away. And you'd want him to get that right in real time, but that's what VAR's for. He's made a mistake. He's booked him because I think he thinks he gets the ball, but he's out of control. So it's a yellow. Then on inspection, he clearly doesn't get the ball, in which case it's the easiest red card overturn you'll ever see in your life. Yeah. One of the times that Stephen McLean actually got involved in the right way, he was trying to interject himself at other points where he had probably no business getting involved, which I'm sure we'll touch on. Like there was a point, we'll get to the penalty, but there was a point, I think, just before the sending off, where there was nothing in the box, and there was a lengthy, Hart was about to take a quick goal kick and get us moving back up the pitch, and he got waited to do that, and there was nothing in it. But McLean's obviously had drawn his attention to something and then decided that there's nothing more to deal with. So yeah, about as straightforward an overturn as you would see. And yeah, it was worth watching the full 8-9 minutes because
I couldn't.
It just ended up with McFadden made him look like an absolute idiot, even more of an idiot than his own comments did. McFadden basically had him on toast. Neil Lennon was very, very restrained and just sitting back and letting it all play out and having a little snigger to him. And then he chimed in with a couple of little digs. I think he said, I think he's obviously tried to leave one on him. You know, myself and Chris have done that in the past, and Sutton went, "Speak for yourself, Lenny." But yeah, there was a little bit of banter, but there was at one point James McFadden actually had his head in his hands during part of Kenny Miller's monologue. It was just excruciating.
Chris Sutton's facial expressions did it for me because he's just like pulling every face under the sun. I was going like, why am I here? Like, I'm dealing with this. It's terrible.
But yeah, it's all well and good having both sides and a bit of partisanship, but you've still got to try and err on the side of some sort of sanity, which it was just nonsense, absolute nonsense.
All right, I want to race through some comments and then we'll move on to the second half because our time is unsurprisingly getting away from us. I think we spent enough time talking about Kenny Miller. Kenny Miller, by the rules of the game, yes, it was a red card, but I think it was a red card. Yeah, that's about right. PPG. Pat McGraughlin, Neil McCann's already spouted the same line this season, Pete. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he would have, and I'm pretty sure he would have died in that ditch as well because, you know, the two of them are absolute fuds. Who's the snitch? Miller's a moron. Yep. And Kenny Miller is a clown man. Yep. Kenny Miller was clearly sniffing the glue. And then Jerry Burns, this is the point I wanted to bring us up just quickly, is you know, it could have been a broken leg and the referee was only going to give a yellow card. That says everything about refereeing in Scotland. And I must admit, you know, you kind of think that Willie Collum probably should have maybe seen that as a red in the first instance, but you know, obviously he's got the benefit of VAR, and we ultimately got to the right decision. But you know, in another parallel universe where we didn't have VAR, you know, you have to wonder would the right decision have been made? I'm not so sure.
I think it's a bit of a trait. I think it's a bit of a trait with VAR that some referees are quite happy to just err on the side of caution, knowing that
if it's bad, it'll get picked up.
If it's bad, it'll be dealt with. Yeah. So, you know, there's maybe a lack of spine in some of these things. Although, you know, we'll get to the penalty, but he was pretty definitive on that, and stuck to his guns as well. So
yeah, we'll come to that, and that's something Willie's done once this season already. He ruled against us in a penalty decision for something like early in the season. And then who's the snitch? Anthony, are you on the Vino? Yes, I am. Because, you know, why give my liver a rest? All right. Well, second half, we started off all right. Still maintained the momentum. No changes. I think they reined in the changes, didn't they? They brought some subs on. If memory serves me correctly. Ross McCollum came on for John Suter at halftime.
Yep. Suter was sacrificed. And that's a weird one in itself, isn't it? Right? Selling one of their better players. He gets shunted about all over the pitch because he is a good player and he's versatile. But obviously he was having some joy down that side against Greg Taylor. And then his best position isn't even out wide, it's in midfield. But they shunted him to allow Lundstrom to play there. That worked out well for them. And then they take off a recognised centre-back, not to sacrifice that position, but just to move the makeshift midfielder, winger, fullback into a makeshift centre-back. So you can only assume that something's gone up with Suter for that to be the case. And it's not just tactical. But yeah, it didn't. And McCausland came on in wide right, and it didn't really lead to anything. And yeah, we sort of set the pace again from early in the second half.
So yeah, we ended up with a penalty on the 55th minute.
51st minute.
51st? Oh yeah, I suppose by the time he actually missed it because there was a lengthy VAR check.
Yeah, it ran to 4. It was 3 minutes for the VAR check, and there was another minute that Butland wasted. So there was a 4. O'Reilly was, and this is the only thing you can say in his defense of his shit penalty, and he called it a shit penalty himself, is that he had to wait 4 minutes to take it, which is less than ideal.
He's taken a couple of belters recently. That's, in fairness, I mean, that was a really rubbish penalty, right? But I mean, the Panenka against, was it Dundee? I can't remember. Was it Dundee?
No, it was against Rangers.
Rangers.
against
Oh,
Rangers
of
last
course it
time.
was. Yeah, sorry, forgive me. Yes, and then the one he whacked into the top corner. So I mean, he's got nice variability in his penalty taking. It is unpredictable, but yeah, that was not great.
He did say that he was waiting for Butland to move, and Butland moved very late, and by then he was in two minds, and that's how it ended up sloughing it. And you know, it happens.
Should have just Panenka that again.
Well,
Yeah.
I know if he'd done that, he'd have been all right. But yeah, he says he needed a bigger pair of balls. But next time, I'm sure Matt's balls are a reasonable size, so it's all good. But it wasn't to be, and unfortunately, it made the last half hour's viewing, you know, I suppose a little bit edgier than it needed to be. We obviously created some gilt edge chances. The one that springs to mind that didn't make the highlights was Adam Ida. I know he was definitely onside. He was definitely onside for one of his chances, and he should have done better. Maeda was offside for two of his chances. The one with a free kick, and he got on the end of it, and he was offside, but you know, finished it really well. And then the other one where unfortunately he was just sort of coming back onside, but the ball was just played a fraction early. And but again, he finished that with aplomb as well. And it's like, I think somebody said on Twitter, it's like when he knows he's offside, like he just seems to
brilliant finishing when there's no pressure. Yeah, the second one would have been an absolutely fantastic goal. It's a great ball by Kuhn.
Yeah, we were celebrating.
It's sort of, it's a bit unforgivable. You know, you will forgive him because he had a fantastic game, but it's a bit unforgivable for a winger to get caught offside in that position, especially one with the pace that he's got. He doesn't really. He could give himself a yard of room to stay onside, and he'd still be faster than his marker in most occasions. So, yeah, cracking pair of finishes, especially the second one on the half volley. But yeah, sadly, just offside. But Ida had a few. Some he should have probably done better with. Some he should have probably made a different choice. There's one where he decided to try and play Ida in, and I think Kuhn was coming in on the angle. If he just cut it back to him, he's got a pretty easy chance. It's one that gets snuffed out at the front post. Probably not going to have too much of a go on that, but there's one where he, very similar to the Silva chance in the first half, he gets in behind his fullback and he just pulls the shot, same as Silva does, pulls it past the far post. He should probably do better there.
I think that's the one I was thinking of.
So you know, you're looking at then, there's two or three easy chances in the second half we could have had, plus the penalty, plus Kyogo's gilt edge chance first half. There's 5 good chances there that you would have expected us to take at least 2 or 3 of. Should have been 5 or 6-1, really.
But I just think you get that third one and 3 turns into 4 really easily. Like at 2-1, they still feel like they're in a game. But if you score that third one early doors, then all hope is lost, and then they're just fighting fires after that. Maesh has brought a point up here that I hadn't actually seen this anywhere online. But is there any truth to the rumors thrown on that it was a punch up between Suter and Lundstrom?
That story is doing the rounds. No idea if it's true or not.
I'm happy to spread that rumor.
It could be true, or it could be just more mischief from our support. But yeah, we're not sure.
We've clearly not put this past legal, but anyway, all good.
Allegedly.
Are we going to touch on the sort of penalty and some of the fallout in the aftermath of that in terms of what the other side have been saying about? Have you been following how it's been
tell us, Paul.
Received.
Go on, Paul. I must admit this has missed me, but go.
Well, look, obviously, Steve McLean obviously thought there was something in it to set. So, in fairness to Colm, he gives it immediately. I think we all think it's a penalty. Steve McLean, obviously. So I think what he's trying to insinuate is there's no doubt that O'Reilly goes down with a bit of drama. It's a bit of a dramatic tumble, but there's 100% contact. There's 100% contact that is instigated by the defender. O'Reilly's not moving his leg or his foot. He's not looking for the contact. But as soon as he feels the contact, he obviously goes, well, I'm going to have to go down. But then it's a sort of in stages sort of fall. It's one of those, back in the day, you'd have tried to stay on your feet. You wouldn't have been able to collect the ball because you've been impeded. And depending on the quality of the ref, more than likely, you probably wouldn't get a foul given. So for long enough, it's been accepted that if there's contact, you've got to go down. And look, it's about as stonewall a penalty as you get in the current environment. But the one that's been doing some rounds is there's some Rangers fan has put a picture of that penalty and the contact and a picture of the Lagabielka Dessers one from the first game, and it says, "We just want some consistency." To which obviously every Celtic fan has jumped on there and going, "It's absolutely consistent. There's a foot coming into play, caught the other player, and a free kick is or a foul has been given against the Rangers player, and something towards Celtic." So that's utterly consistent. What he actually meant is he doesn't want consistency. He wants these to not be fouls against his team. But yeah, there's been a bit of, as you would expect from them, that it was soft. But I think they'd be screaming for it in the other end. It's nowhere near as soft as a Silva penalty at Ibrox.
Well, I was trying to say that. If that's the barometer for a penalty, then the Matt Riley one was a stonewall for me. I mean, well, if that was deemed to be a penalty the last time around, I think you're well within your rights to say that was the same. And yeah, he went down easy, but sometimes you've got to do that to win the penalty. Like if you stay on your feet, you might not get it, and then it's like ultimately you're there to win a game of football, and I had no problems with it. There was enough contact for me. Yeah, he went down softly, but it's 2024. These things happen, and it happened to us against us the last time. So it's fair. But Rangers fans, they'll try and clutch at any straw that they feel that they've been mistreated or maligned or whatever. But I think some of them, the penny's starting to drop that Clement is not exactly the bold saviour that they thought he might be. I think it's one of the comments here as well. Actually, not that one. This one. Stores kept Clement in a job. Yeah, probably maybe. So I mean, maybe it was better we didn't stud them because then they might be looking for a new manager. Then it's back to their continual merry-go-round, but better them than us. We're getting on in time, so before we do man of the match, was there any other points that anyone wanted to bring up regarding the game before we start wrapping up?
Just enough stuff around the ref. I think they have something like 17 fouls and just the red card, which they were going to get a yellow for. And we pick up 3. As I say, the Hatate one identical to one earlier in the game by Lundstrom.
Yeah.
And look, Carl's is a yellow, but worth noting that he was left in a rubbish situation by a dreadful sort of scales pass, which he then had to do a professional foul and took one for the team. So yeah, I thought the midfield played very well, although Hatate sort of was in and out. He had some good running, as he often does, but he coughed up possession a fair bit. I thought Cal McGregor was excellent again. O'Reilly was excellent again. Both wingers that started had a great game. Kyogo was kind of on the periphery, and you kind of wish that he'd had the chances that Ida had.
Yeah, got at the end.
You would imagine that he would have taken more than Ida did. But yeah, I guess job done. I guess the last thing is what Anthony Ralston deserves a bit of a mention because he was everywhere after he came on. Obviously, I think Alisson Johnson probably suffering the after effects of that tackle, and he's lucky that, as you guys said, he's lucky it wasn't a broken leg. But the Bricky did a great job when he came on. He was all action. He got some great crosses into the box. Probably put the best deliveries in the box all day. And 2 or 3 really good, strong defensive headers in the box late on. Hart had a couple of good punches, clear. And obviously we were all stressed because it was, one deflection, one penalty, it turns into a draw. And obviously we've been sucker punched lately in the reverse fixture at their place. So there's obviously stress around, but I watched that back, obviously knowing how it panned out. There's very little from them late on. Yeah. They threw players forward and they threw things into the box.
Yeah.
but with no end product. There's literally Hart doesn't make a save all day. He gets beaten for their goal, but he doesn't make a save all day. Beyond that, he's a couple of good punches, and there's a few good blocks. Now I've been critical of Scales again, and I have been consistent in that. He's very frustrating. I saw somebody comment this earlier on, and I just thought it was spot on. He's hugely frustrating because it might have been Big Rab Beanez. Because he does the defensive stuff, the last-ditch defensive stuff, he does very well. He does that great, gets blocks in, he throws his body, puts his body on the line. But then he gets caught ball watching and he lets things drift over his head. He's positionally out for key areas. Then on the other side, while we're in possession, he strides forward with purpose. He drives forward, but then he's got no idea what he's going to do with it, and it all breaks down because he hasn't got the level of ability that we need to be playing good quality progressive passes and sort of moving the game forward. So it's a fair amount of development for him. He's obviously been given his contract. I certainly hope it's as a backup and a squad member, and he's probably earned it from that point of view. But we certainly need to upgrade 2, if not 3 parts of the defense for next season, as well as the keeper.
Well, once we have to replace the keeper because Joe Hart's retiring. He got a standing ovation at the Players Night, which was very nice. Brendan Rodgers' record against Rangers: 17 games, 13 wins, 3 draws, 1 defeat, 39 goals for, 12 against. And I must admit, he was collecting tickets after the match, saying that he's been treated like a novice since coming back to Scotland, and he was definitely clearing a few clocks, just sort of saying, well, I was pretty clear on what I said I set out to do at the start of the season. He said we get us to a cup final in May and hopefully a league title, and here we are. We're on the precipice of that. Obviously, we're not there yet, but we're just about. And he definitely said it's been his most difficult season at Celtic, and I think injuries. Maybe a couple of missed signing opportunities, and then obviously the whole thing with your man Abada. And you can't unfortunately predict world events playing against you, but that definitely was unexpected. So like I said, I think through the adversity, as much as it is, I think we'll come away with this going, yep, we got there. And as I said to you, Paul, I think on Saturday night, I think I said this, or I thought it anyway, is that, a couple of years' time, we're not going to remember that, we don't say scraped it, but, like we had one of these seasons where we were a bit indifferent in patches and, it wasn't champagne and it wasn't an absolute cruise the whole time, but we've had to earn it, and, we'll get there. And, it'll be another title on the mantelpiece, so in the cabinet. So I just also wanted to mention as well that Caitlin Hayes won Player of the Year for the women's team, and Amy Gallagher won Player of the Year for the women's team. So I just want to mention that as well.
And they're on for quite a season. So if they can
victory.
2 more wins, will take the title to. Well, you'd expect that they've got a better goal difference, so 2 wins should be enough. They've got Hibs and Hearts, I think, to come. So winnable matches, win those, and it's in their own hands. So yeah, it'd be amazing. It would be their first title since the women's team was formed. And
their coach was all fangirling over Henrik Larsson because she's Swedish as well.
Swedish loving, yeah.
That was nice. Richard, who was your man of the match? Since you were the most sober one watching the game. Calmack?
Yeah, Calmack. Yeah, I thought he was powerful. He was controlled. Some brilliant energy coming forward early part of the game. Had his customary asides to some of the Rangers players, like made sure that he was in their faces. Yeah, really, really solid performance. There were lots of good performances, but yeah, for me, just seeing him back after, but we were pretty anxious about him 2 or 3 weeks ago. Remember, he was kind of a bit of a miss, yeah. and it didn't look that good. But yeah, like really, a captain's performance. I think it's Calmack every time.
Paul.
Well, on Calmack, I'm led to believe there was some bits of niggle out there. I'm led to believe that when Lawrence had a crack at him inside the first minute, he you can see he's sort of laughing at him, and there was some words exchanged. Apparently, he said, "Oh, so are you the new hard man?" Which, if that's true, that's some quality. That's some quality comeback, because he bounced straight up and he was in his face and he was obviously laughing, and obviously there was a comment made, and apparently that's a comment.
Not bad.
I don't know if it's true, but it's a good story even if it isn't. He had a great game. He was right up there. As was Matt O'Reilly, who I think was the sponsors man of the match in the ground on the day. But for me, there's only one man of the match for me, and it's Mr. Lazarus himself, Daisen Maeda. He was phenomenal. He set the pace from the early minutes. He was tracking back. His defensive work was amazing as always, but he had some end product, and he was just magnificent all day. Played the 98 minutes or whatever it was when he should have been on a treatment table. Still phenomenal.
Yes, cult hero is the word that's been bandied about. So he's definitely one of these guys that in years to come we'll remember him, because I still think James Tavernier has nightmares. And I must admit, he probably was doing a high five when he heard he was out for the season, but little did he know that's not what was happening. I was going to split decision tonight, lads, because I'm going to go with Matt O'Reilly. And I know he missed the penalty, but that goal he scored was fantastic. He started the move, he finished the move. He could have scored a couple of other chances. I thought he was everywhere, particularly in the up until what I said, probably the penalty miss. So yeah, for me, he just showed that quality that unfortunately I've got a feeling we might be missing or losing into season 2024-25 if he does get the big contract and move away that he probably deserves. And I think it was one of the questions here. I've unhighlighted it, but somebody was asking in the comments, do we think he should make the Danish squad now that the Euro squads have opened up with an extra 3 places? And I definitely think they'd be mad not to take him along, because the fact that he can sort of slot in anywhere in that midfield, I think that would be I don't know how Denmark's going these days, but I think they'd be clamoring for that, you'd have thought.
Well, he's been in squads and he's been in and around the cusp. So he's made a few, I think, with injuries kicking around. But you would think with those extra spots opening up and just his general form over the last sort of 12 months, you'd think he'd be on the plane.
But yeah, but like I said, split decision. I think it's the first time this season we've actually had a split decision, because normally there's always 2 out of the 3 of us agree. So I think that sort of says how strong the performance was.
Yeah, good performances all around.
All right, Richard, have you got any recommendations for us this week, mate?
Last few days of Perth Comedy Festival. If you haven't been out, if you're in Perth and round about, go and see a show. The Artist's doing it hard and all the rest of it. But I'm going to see Melanie Bracewell, who is Kiwi and Channel 10 telly famous, but is playing a gig in Subiaco Thursday and Friday night. Get yourself out. There's a Perth Comedy Showcase on Friday night and Saturday night. So yeah, if you like live comedy, that's my recommendation for this week. Go and do it.
Paul?
So a couple again this week. Music, obviously, and I've got a telly one as well. So my music recommendation of the week is which is, well, we're late in the show, we're allowed a bit sweary later on. So the album is called I'm Totally Fine With It, Don't Give a Fuck Anymore. It's by the fabulous Arab Strap. Aidan Moffat and Malcolm Middleton are back doing their thing. It came out on Friday. Go give it a listen. It's probably up there with some of their angriest work, but it's very good. So yeah, Arab Strap, I'm Totally Fine With It. Emoji, Don't Give a Fuck Anymore. Another emoji. Yeah, check it out. So that's my music recommendation. Pair of Scottish legends. And my TV recommendation is on Apple TV. Quite a lot of hype about this one already, and it's a show called Dark Matter. Joe Ledger and Jennifer Connelly. It's based on a novel. The author, whose name escapes me, but he's basically the main producer and writer of the show too. So it's, my wife read the book and loved it, and has been bigging it up for ages, and very excited about it arriving on screen. And I have to say that it sort of lives up to the hype. It's how to explain it. It's basically the main character is a scientist who has become a university professor and lecturer, and explores the idea of alternative realities, and obviously what happens at set points in your life if you make different decisions and your life goes off in a different direction, and basically suggests that there are all these other alternate realities going on. But what happens if somebody from an alternate reality comes across into your reality and tries to hijack it? Pretty dark and really well made. So yeah, 2 episodes out already. 3rd episode's out tomorrow. Wednesday. Dark Matter on Apple TV is looking excellent already.
So is Jennifer Connelly for 53 years of age, but anyway,
I think she's made a deal with the devil, to be honest. So, because
but you know her plastic surgeon. I've got a thing that would melt the coldest of hearts, but young Jay had a reunion with Giorgio Samaras at the Players night. So Jay, we supporter, there's a viral sort of video of him giving Sammy a hug when he was a wee boy, and 10 years later they had a reunion last night and gave him a big hug, and it melts your heart. It's it's all over Twitter, so it's just a wee feel good moment for the Celtic family. Interestingly enough, Odsonne Edouard also in attendance, so who knows, maybe French Eddie could be back in Celtic colours next season. Who knows? She's not exactly set the heather a light at Crystal Palace. And my recommendation this week is don't do a PT session if you're a night on the pitch watching Celtic. So there you go. With that in mind, it's been fantastic. We've got 2 more weeks to go. We're at like I said, we're at the precipice. We're nearly there. Like I said, let's get the champagne out next week and celebrate. So all that's left to say for the time being is hail, hail.
Hail, hail.
Hail, hail.